Mr. Taklalsingh, how are you going, my brother?
Very good, very good.
Explain to the people, what is this motion of privilege? What are you seeing? What have you seen? What is the norm? What is the law? What are standing orders? Talk.
Well, all right. Let's do it. First of all, thanks for having me on tonight, and good night to the viewers and all of your viewers and all the different media platforms. Anil, before we get into the specifics of what's happening, we have to place this thing in context. What has happened and what they are attempting to do, and I'll put it like that for now, is no less than destroy our constitutional right to freedom of expression and freedom of speech, which is a constitutional right guaranteed to every single citizen. But even more so, as a senator, you have a right to freedom of expression and speech in the parliament as well, because you are put there to do the people's business. And everybody knows that the way to test government policy, the way to test the legislative agenda, to hold the government to account, is by the robust expression of speech and of opinions and views. You may not like the views that are being expressed. In fact, that's the way that our Westminster system of parliament works. The opposition and government are supposed to be at loggerheads. Yes, they work together now and then, but they are supposed to battle there, to put it, in a sort of way. You have to battle and you have to have a crucible. That's what it is. It's a crucible, and what comes out should really be refined policy, refined legislation that is to redound to the benefit of the entire population. So how do you achieve that? You achieve that through free speech and freedom of expression. Now, we're going to stay away. We're going to deal with what happened in the Senate, in the Privileges Committee. As you said, I endorse your call for a public display, a public hearing. Everybody, let's bring in the principles of open justice. They want to discipline you, they want to censor you, they want to put a metaphorical tape around your mouth. Well, let them explain to the population. Let us, they always say that open justice solves everything, and we should bring the air of transparency to disinfect any wrongdoing. So let us have an open hearing, let's broadcast it, and let them come and explain what satire and what parts of the broadcast.
Well, explain that for the people in general.
Yeah.
What is satire? What is allegory? What is double entendre? What is fairy tale? What is, because I nearly choke when I listen to Franklin Candy. But we're not talking specifically, but I think we're going to deal with that in the committee. But in general.
Well, I'm going to put it this way. I don't think they understand what that is, to start with, right? I don't think they properly understand what it is. And I don't want to help them necessarily.
Yes.
But what I could say is that you are allowed to use metaphors, to use narratives, you are allowed to use all sorts of creative expressions to get a point across. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. That's the first works of art in the world, poetry and all these things. Use that type of expression. Are you saying that in Trinidad and Tobago? I mean, I know we're close to Venezuela, but are you saying in Trinidad and Tobago that should be taken away from us? In Trinidad and Tobago, where we have extempo, where we have pichikari, where we have all these types of expression where Calypsonians go head to head in extempo, and they end the verse with Sanzi Manite. Is that what you're telling Trinidadians, that we can't use robust expression? Absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Now, as I said, I don't want to get into the facts of what has happened, but we must remember that when we engage in any type of parliamentary process and any type of parliamentary debate, it is important that you exercise that right and you continue to exercise that right. The worst thing that could come out of this, Anil, is that for some reason you feel a little, well, I know you're not the bashful type, but you feel a little withdrawn and retract. I say continue to give them the pressure.
But you make a good point. Other people now,
yes,
other senators, other opposition people with different personalities and so on,
yeah,
may be scared or may feel intimidated, and how dangerous is that?
Well, and that's the point. And that is why, as you know, one of the laws that we had to challenge some time ago was sedition. And this to me is no different to the principles of sedition. The reason we had a problem with sedition is because it was so broadly framed. Anything could be seditious. Anything could be seditious, anything could be construed or interpreted as seditious. So what you had is, once you had one or two threats of sedition in society, then anybody who likes to speak in a robust way or a harsh way or a critical way was saying, well, boy, I wonder if I could now be charged for sedition. I could be brought to a court, and sometimes the prospect of a charge is enough to make people go into silence. And recently, Justice C. Prasad said it in a case. It was a case done by Mr. Rupal and some others. Ms. Sophia Chote was on that case as well. When the police raided the Express Media House, right? Justice C. Prasad said the raiding of a media house could have a chilling effect on free speech. And this, to me, where you have someone in Parliament using a parliamentary procedure to attack your free speech as a senator outside the House, could have a chilling effect on the way that our elected representatives and appointed representatives, both House and Senate, articulate their views in the public and articulate their views in the Parliament. You can't be expressing views, and you know there's a saying, with the sword of Damocles hanging over you, with a sword hanging over you, ready to chop your neck off because you say something that might offend. Of course you're going to say things that offend. And naturally, and I mean this is no secret, the majority, and we'll get into that with constitutional reform, the majority in the Senate is the PNM, and they will get whichever speaker or whichever president that they want. That's how it works. Unfortunately or fortunately, that's how the Constitution works right now in our country. And so what you have is the person being put there has a natural bias. We're not running from that. We know that is the system. But maybe we've come to a point in our democracy and our democratic maturity where we have to say the time has come for us to reflect and have an independent Speaker of the House and an independent President of the Senate. Because we can no longer go on where petty disputes are being, or that type of victimization is being perpetrated in the highest, and I'm a lawyer, but I would say in one of the highest forums for debate in our country, even on par with the court, right?
So let me also tell you what's the irony, and people would say, I have gone to the Privileges Committee, but within the whole concept of privilege is based on free speech and freedom to express yourself. So much so that Keith Christopher Rowley, who when he went to bring that email gate, no confidence motion in Kamala Prasad Bissessa the government, his first 3 pages, go and read the Hansard. He gave examples about from different jurisdictions, different parliaments, where people who knew that they were coming to lie were afforded the right to lie, even though it would offend other members, because a parliamentarian must have the privilege to divulge information without the sort of as you say, the sword over their neck.
Yes.
And he researched that, gave a whole privilege to lie, the public good to know if there was a possibility of truth. And that was Rowley's argument with Emailgate, the biggest disgrace in the history of the Parliament. And now we are saying that I am going before a Privileges Committee first and foremost because my mouth too loud and because I tell a fairy tale.
Your tone.
My tone, mouth, loud. Me I know what is a tone. I get kicked out of choir since I was 7 years old, Miss Ramke School, in UE Primary School. What talk about the irony of that a Privileges Committee, someone is being sent to a Privileges Committee for discussing fairy tale outside on the media.
Let me put it this way, Anil. There is an important public, or there's an important societal and public policy importance in having privilege. When you go to the parliament and a parliamentarian, be it a senator or a member of the House, rises on his leg to speak, he must speak without fear. And what our Constitution guarantees him is that he will not be prosecuted in any criminal court for anything that he says, or he will not be prosecuted in any civil court for anything he says. And that is the point. He is given that immunity, he is given that power so that he can speak freely and fearlessly on issues which affect the people. Now, that is not to say that you use that power abusively or you use that power to attack members of the public. And of course there's a procedure where if you attack a member of the public, he can write to the House. And so you have controls, and the Privileges Committee is one of them. But that is a far cry from someone telling you that you can't speak either in the decibel level, what I mean by that is how loud, or in the tone, or in the manner. That certainly has nothing to do with offending any privilege that is afforded to you by the Constitution. And yes, I mean, we can argue, with politics, we can argue that this has been abused by some people. A man read a bunch of fake emails in our parliament, right? And he was protected. But unfortunately or fortunately, that serves a public purpose. You could go and report things. I mean, he was dealt, I mean, politically, you would have to deal with him. But legally, you couldn't. And that's the same point. So, it's a sort of equality principle. If that was the position then, why is it not the position now? And the only answer to that is because of the abuse of the majority by the government at this point. They are abusing their majority and using their majority in a tyrannical way in order to suppress free speech, in order to suppress the opposition members and the Senate. Because I watch Parliament sometimes. I recall looking at a debate in the House, and I can't remember who it was, but they said on the opposition side, they said the government was becoming a dictatorship and a creeping dictatorship. And that was unparliamentary language. And that totally shocked me. The parliament, as I understand it, and I am a sort of history buff, the point of the parliament was to be a check on untrammeled monarchical power then, but executive power. The point of the parliament is to stop dictatorships. So if you can't call out a dictatorship in a parliament, then what is the point of the parliament? What is the point? If you can't say the government is becoming a creeping dictatorship, then you really have no free speech.
And especially when one run away.
Well, exactly.
Because, I mean, we saw it and we seen it. And isn't it ironic? We can't go into the facts of my case, but we were debating a motion put by Senator Mark that the government had curtailed our speaking time and cut it in half for no reason. And while people were allowed to play.
Senator Mark, please apologize for what you just said. Senator Mark, please apologize for what you just said. Okay, Senator Mark, with that, you're to leave the chamber and you're not to return for the rest of the sitting. Attorney General.
He is the sole entity with the authority.
Whose phone is it? Please leave the chamber as well. You can return when the committee deliberations begin. Attorney General.
Madam Speaker.
Senator Roberts. Yes.
Senator Mark be able to come back in if there's a vote, please?
Senator Mark was asked to leave here. If Senator Mark comes back in before the vote and is prepared to apologize for his behavior, he'll be allowed to take part in the vote.
Excuse me, please. I just want to show you all. When I go in the Senate, me I no game to play, you know. Douglar Politics, I might get some kicks and entertainment in between. When I dress up in black suit and tie and thing to go inside, me I no game to play serious business and laws. So even if I had to, you have so nice, I asked quiet if Senator Mark could come back in. Remember, he had been ejected for the whole, that was it.
Yeah.
I had to run outside and stop him. He was down the steps with the key in his hand, you know. But had he gone, we lose 15-14.
Yeah.
We didn't know it at a sneaky weeky. So tell me, Kyle.
Well, all right. So there is a concept in law about arbitrariness. Essentially, the point, and I heard someone speak about it recently, the rule of law means that we are a society of laws, not men. We are a society governed by the laws that we create through a democratic system, through a representative government in our case. When we create law, everybody must be able to ascertain what the law is and what are the consequences of breaching the law. Regardless of it, be it standing orders, be it regulations, subsidiary legislation, anything. We must look at law and be bound by that law. And the purpose of that goes back to ancient times. The king in ancient times couldn't just come and make up a law today and then change that law tomorrow and then change it the next day and apply it in a different standard. And that's why we have the rule of law now. So anybody with a position of power, like the Speaker, like the Senate, ought to be consistent and ought to be guided by the clear tenets, wordings, and expressions used in the law. You can't come today and say, Senator Rawi is talking loud, I mean, I'm just calling her name, right? And when you are speaking loud, you have to be put out.
I'm not sure if the video showed it, but a presiding officer was instructing a senior senator, Senator Wade Mark, who's the leader of the opposition bench, who has been in the Senate, Parliament, Speaker, and so on, 30 years. Look at me!
Yes.
look at me. And he said, I don't have to look at you. And got thrown. I am confused. Let me don't say nothing. Before they say, then I asking a question.
Well, I won't deal directly with the incident.
Right.
But what I will say is that has to do with the discussion I had about arbitrariness. You can't arbitrarily make up a standard or a rule today that you are not going to apply tomorrow. Is it that every speaker in the House has to look at the president? We don't know. And certainly compelling someone to look at you while they speak. I mean, I would be very shocked if that was a law anywhere in any country, in any parliament, anywhere in the world. Whether here, Senator Pakistan, any make-believe plan. I could not see a law like that forcing or compelling someone to look you at least in your eyes. I mean, I don't know why you would want someone to look you in your eye while you're speaking all the time, but to look at you straight and to speak. It seems
as
to
a
be.
judge ever before you have gone before the highest courts in the land. Has a judge ever told you, look at me in my eye while you're presenting?
I've never had that experience. I mean, generally.
In all your years?
In all my years. Generally, advocates, we speak, we're trained to do it. We're trained to speak and address courts. And you would have House of Representative members and Senate, maybe not trained to speak in that formal way, but that's the point. You are the people's representatives there. You come from all walks of life. You might have a lawyer, you might have a doctor, you might have a market vendor, a businessman, a sports coach. You bring that wealth of experience and different approaches to debates to the parliament. It is supposed to be a real melting pot of ideas, speech, debates, arguments. So you have to have that level of tolerance. You can't be demanding such rigid formalities from a speaker. Look at me or else you get put out. That, to me, that is completely arbitrary.
Talk about now
Yeah.
the concept of conflict of interest.
Right.
Without specifics right now, but the Committee of Privilege where I have been sent by Smiley, the leader of PNM business, who brought the motion saying that I did something against a PNM appointed, and then the PNM appointed said, well, the second PNM appointed will adjudicate and send me down to a Committee of Privileges on which there are 3 PNM, 1 UNC, and 1 independent, and 2 out of the 3 PNM were actively involved in sending me there. In a court of law, describe the law, the concept of conflict of interest, recusal, and so on.
Yeah, well, that would never happen in a court of law. That would never happen in any quasi-judicial, and by quasi-judicial I mean any type of court. I don't even think it would happen in a kangaroo court, to put it like that, right? Well, it shouldn't happen in a kangaroo court. But either way, at the end of the day, it is what you call systemic bias. And we all know what bias is. Everybody, I don't have to drill down into the law about bias. I mean, we'll leave that for legal arguments, right? But bias means obviously if you have an interest or you have foreknowledge, it's what you call predetermination as to what is going to be done, and you already make up your mind, you have a closed mind about something, then you ought not to adjudicate upon an issue that concerns someone. That is an ancient principle of law. In the Latin, I don't want to get too official, it's called nemo juris in causa sua. No man shall be a judge in his own cause, right? And that's the point. If you have some skin in the game.
He sent me, the freighter sent me, he said, and I quote, he see a prima facie case for me to go privilege, but then he on the Committee of Privilege. Oh, they don't want me laugh, I don't know what to say.
Well, that is a clear case of predetermination. In fact, recently the Privy Council dealt with that, where a judge made preliminary rulings in a case. He was debarred from hearing the substantial matter in the case because you have already heard the arguments, you make up your mind. How much more can you really entertain? I don't know. Do we have the reasons? Can we put up the reasons that he gave the Senator the freedom?
Yes, you might have that clip, that little.
If you just have that, well, you could say the reasons, or you could, if you have the document.
But you go ahead.
Yeah. And the point is that if you have already decided the matter, there it is. Now,
yes.
I want your members to take
point up big. You don't want to see me let it big, so
It says, the leader of government business alleges that statements made by Senator Anil Roberts on that date on his social media show, Douglar Politics, reflect negatively on the presiding officer in the discharge of her duties, and bring the Senate as a whole into odium and disrepute. Right? Now, in law, we know, as lawyers as anybody,
leave it there. Yeah.
a sure telltale sign that a decision is bad is when you don't have good reasons. That is a symptom of bad decision making. And you know, the reason is obviously because you can't justify your decision. That document, those reasons, and no reasons are the same thing. They don't tell you what the statements are. They don't tell you how you brought it into disrepute. You don't say what was offensive. You don't even say precisely what was the meaning to be derived from the what is he said subtext of allegory. Subtext of allegory. Well, I mean the move of the emotion. Frankie can. Honorable Minister can.
Oh,
right?
Franklin can, yes.
Honorable Minister, right? Reflect negatively. What reflects negatively? Where? How was the Senate brought into disrepute? Right? Which statements, alleged that statements made, that program was an hour and a half.
Yes.
Right?
And by 2, so
yes.
it's 3 hours of
So,
program.
correct. Which statements? And that's how you know that a decision was bad, it was biased, and it was designed simply to produce a result, to chastise you in the public, to bring you before the Privileges Committee. But I want to let them know that that was probably the worst thing they could do, because now the government has allowed this issue. This issue has been, you know, burning for some time in my view, even though under the last tenure, where you had very biased rulings of the presiding officers of both houses. But I don't want to say I'm glad that this happened, but this will allow us a battlefield.
No, I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, to
because
fight.
we need to improve the country.
Yes.
So you feel like studying them? This just shows how they are moving towards total dictatorship, oppression, and the tyranny of the majority over the minority is now clear for all to see.
And
so change must come.
And that's it. And you know, Anil, that brings another important point. No constitution will be perfect. I don't think anybody could design a constitution that could eliminate all abuses. You know what prevents that from happening? The maturity of politicians and democratic conventions, norms and values. Even if you have the majority and you are able to exercise a power, why would you exercise a power to deprive an opposition senator of free speech?
And Senator Wade Mark said that when he quoted former Speaker of the House Hector McLean, and he said, Hector McLean said, the opposition must have its say because the government will have its way. And that's how it has been done. When Barry Sinanan was there, when Wade Mark was there, the Speaker had telling all your Wade Mark used to give me headache, and he was on my side, so to speak. Yeah. But he was doing his job properly, and it is becoming totally obnoxious. And I am telling you, when I cannot even fathom, when you say it, it's now soaking in, that other senators, because we have temporary senators in there, we have females in there, we have people who are not, I come up in war from swimming, war and fight and think that's normal thing for me. But it really, you know, they always used to say, for example, when the PNM decimates the OWTU, all man Jack gone through, because you beat and you mash up the baddest fighter, the strongest warrior first.
Yes.
So then everybody else becomes butter.
Yes.
So when the union, the OWTU, the most powerful union of Buzz Butler and Adrian Cola Rienzi and them come down and get shattered, and Petrotrin is shattered and may never come back, and the OWTU is decimated. What will happen to WASA workers? What will happen to TNTech workers when they come for the public servants? Who go fight them? What's new? You know, because they weaken the movement. And I now understanding your point that you are trying to dictate and set a trend even down in the lower house to tell parliamentarians, watch it. Now let me ask you this. How do you equate that? I am before the Privileges Committee for fairy tale, whatever. Me even know what are there for. We go find them. Irrelevant, nor do I care. However, a minister of government asking a direct question in the parliament states categorically that no Dayman engineers have come to Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore the Coast Guard vessels are not functioning due to COVID-19. When he himself signed 2 exemptions for 2 separate engineers from Dayman to come and see, and that did not qualify for privileges. But a fairy tale, but senator qualified to go down in privileges? Explain.
Arbitrary, biased, systemically unfair, using the majority to protect yourself and using the majority to persecute and to stifle dissent. I mean, all those things are coming into play around this issue. And you're right, if it is you have a member of parliament, and I'm not going to call any names or anything, but if you are a member of parliament that misleads the House, he should be brought. Those are the kind of things that privileges
call him the Honorable Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi, a la recusal, a la rental, a la tight pants, a la lost 31 case straight. He was in debate and debating with his arrogant self and quoting and saying the Southern Association of Lawyers and the Law Association, everybody agree with this. And then the different associations that are writing and say, but wait, boss, we don't agree with that. And he gallery himself and then had to write back and say, sorry, I made a mistake and so on and so forth. Yes. That was misleading. But here before no privilege committee.
That is the point of
it. From doing my Douglar Politics about Senator number 4 coming next week. Don't study that.
Well, you're right. And just to pick up on that, those are the kind of things that the privilege committee was designed for. If you misled the House.
Like if you come in the House and lie about Kiel, Taklalsingh and Anil and them conspire to kill a journalist, yes. And you have email and the email is KIEL@gmail and it don't even have enough characters to make an email account to go in the cloud. Yes. As you type that, it won't go nowhere. But you come in to tell people about, it's not emails, it's not whether they were emails or not, it's about the content of something that does not exist. And that is Prime Minister.
Yeah.
So talk to me, let's wrap it up. We will handle it. We're calling for a public hearing.
Public hearing.
So we waive my right, I waive it to privacy.
Broadcast.
Right. Broadcast. Right.
We want a public hearing. I think you've made the call already.
Yes.
We want everyone to see, as you said,
yes.
what is wrong with the Constitution, why this is abuse, and why this entire proceedings is totally misconceived, bad in law, bad in democratic procedure, and inconsistent with a sovereign democratic state, which we are. We cannot have our members of parliament, our senators, being persecuted and prosecuted for exercising free speech and criticizing any office holder. Your job is to criticize office holders. That is your sacred right, and that's why the people have put the UNC there, and in turn the UNC have put you there, because you are good at your job, and we have to defend that right. I think every citizen of this country, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, you have to stand up for this issue. It's time we start dealing with issues and not personalities. Deal with the issue. If it was wrong, it was wrong in the past, it is wrong now. But here what? Now we will fix it. And I think the country must rally around this issue. This is our first step towards some type of constitutional reform. There are many others. People might want to look at the way we vote and other things, the way we appoint
represent.
But let me start
with this.
Stick with this.
You all determine